Hello, everyone, and welcome to the mill today. We have a very special episode. You have both me, Molly, and I, for the first time for the two of us, are bringing on Jamey Stegmaier. So, Jamey, thanks so much for joining us here on the mill. And
I'm elated to be here. Thanks.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
thank
was like,
you.
well, introduce yourself, but I think people who watch the mill probably know who you are pretty well. So, you probably don't need much of an introduction.
Well,
But
just
yeah.
in case, I am the co-founder of Stonemaier Games, and I most related to the chat today. I designed some of our games, namely Vantage, which we're going to be talking about today.
Yep, that is the big deal of the summer for Stonemaier Games and our focus of today's chat. So we're just gonna ask a few questions to Jamey about kind of the origins of Vantage and kind of where it's at right now. And I'm gonna let Molly start that off.
All right, so I just wanted to say, first of all, I've been having a blast playing Vantage. We've been playing it a bunch two-player. Today is June 17th, so we're filming this a few days before the announcement on the 20th, and people are allowed to start sharing content. How would you describe your emotions right now, Jamey, in coming up to this huge launch for such a big game?
Yeah, I there have been lots of different milestones for Vantage throughout the last year since I announced that it's a game. And I've been hinting at it for years, but really I officially announced it a year ago. So a lot of different milestones. This Friday will be a big one because reviewers can start to share their opinions and playthroughs, things like that. And I think the thing that I've been processing really for the last month or so since I've been posting video content for the game is uh, how do I feel about people essentially spoiling aspects of the game for themselves through this content. And it's something that I've had to come to terms with because I think it's good. I want people to feel willing to share their stories about Vantage and their adventures, knowing that it's such a big world that any spoiler is just such a tiny percentage of what other people will discover. And even if you shared something very specific about what you discovered, and I might share a story today about something specific that I've done in the game, you would have to, like, the number of combination of different things that would have to come together for you to experience that the same way is so small. But it's still, because it is a game about exploration and discovery, I'm having to like get used to that being a thing because for so long it's been shrouded in mystery. Um, I'm curious what you two think about that because you've played it, you know what I'm talking about in terms of how big it is and the idea of sharing stories and spoilers. How are you feeling about that as more people will start to talk about it openly?
I
Yeah, I'll
think
go
we just have
first.
to
Oh,
get
sorry.
excited. Go
Sorry,
for it,
Carol.
Molly.
Okay. I actually, yeah, I've played this a few times. Carol has. We chat all the time. And I went through all these steps you are, not from the designer perspective, but like, do I want to spoil it for Carol? And then she like hinted at something, and I'm like, oh, I kind of want to hear about that. And then we've
Yeah,
like been lightly sharing our stories, and then I realized, like you said, I don't have the context for what Carol went through. Like, I can't go find it. I can't
Yeah.
right.
like I won't have those items if it happens with me necessarily, and I think it's just really working out in a way where it's really fun to talk about, but it's not it because like you, I'm no spoiler, but if this is more like an open world video game in a sense, people do talk about the video games they play more than like a legacy board game. So I think you've created a very
Yeah.
unique thing where we don't really know all the rules. It's a lot of gray area advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely sent Molly a picture of one of the cards. I'm like, Molly, look what I get to do. And I was like, oh, it didn't work out very well, but it just like made me laugh out loud. I'm like, Molly will appreciate this. I have to send this picture to her. And yeah, good luck finding it because it
Yeah,
was
I don't
fun.
have a clue how to. But if I ever come across it because you shared it with me, it's going to be a laugh.
Yo. Yeah, that's kind of been my thing because I love stories and narrative. So I got literally, I think, 2 turns into Vantage and went on Amazon and bought a journal.
Appreciate it. Okay.
So I have like all my notes of like my stories. 'Cause I'm like, oh no, it's a game that brings out stories. And I think it'll be fun just to experience that and to tell each other about them. 'Cause as you said, this world is massive. I think it took until our third game for me to play with somebody else, for them to do something I might not have normally done, to even like open something new. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how long it would have taken me to find that.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see other people experiencing it.
Yeah, it's a really good point, actually.
Yeah. So, yeah. You ready for the next question, Jamie?
Sure, sure.
All right. So we're going to go back to kind of origin story here. You've mentioned in many kind of live casts and other design diaries that some of the mechanics for Vantage are inspired by other games. You've included and said Zelda Breath of the Wild from the video games, and then in the rulebook you mentioned a bunch of other board games that were kind of inspirational. So I was kind of wondering, like, when this was all starting, what was it that actually triggered you to want to make a game like Vantage? I mean, it's this huge feat. Before this, you were mostly doing Euros, worker placement. Like, what made you start designing a massive open world game?
Yeah, it's so the game has been in the works for like 8 years now. So I have to dig deep into my memory to try to figure out what happened at the beginning. And I think really honestly for like any game, it's usually a few different ideas have to come together uh, for me to actually start working on it. Sometimes I'll have like a little idea for a mechanism or a little idea for a theme or something like that, and eventually they'll come together. And honestly, I think that's what happened with this game. Like my first thought happened way back when I was playing Time Stories. This was even before Breath of the Wild came out, where there was a certain scenario in Time Stories where I would have been happy just playing that scenario and like running a little market in this fantasy world. And so that was like a little drop of an idea. And then at some point, I was thinking about what might happen in the world of Scythe. And I was talking to Jakob about a very populated world where you can play through the eyes of a bunch of different characters in this world. That didn't end up being a reality, but it was a little drop of an idea. And then Breath of the Wild came out. And it wasn't a game that I played very much at all. I don't play a lot of digital games, but I was just fascinated by the amount of freedom and the scope of the world and the way that players can discover things in different orders and just follow whatever path they want in the world. In Breath of the Wild, I was fascinated by that. So once I saw that, that took some of these other ideas and made them congeal into something that I thought I could actually start to work on. Yeah, I think that's the best that I can recall of how I actually started working on something and putting pencil to paper.
And it was 8 years ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Well, as someone who's beaten Breath of the Wild, I see the influence very clearly. You even have the vibes, so I'm surprised when I learned you hadn't like played through the whole game, because it really does feel like an open world video game to me, which I also don't play a lot of video games, but when I do play them, I usually beat them, and open world ones always suck me in. And I think it's really the closest thing I've seen in a board game to an open world video game. Besides, or like the last closest one was Sleeping Gods, which I know I also feel the influence huge in playing this.
Yeah. Well, I guess one of the subtle things from Breath of the Wild, oh, it's not that subtle, but the idea that you were exploring the world from a first-person perspective, that was something that I wanted, because there's so many exploration games, many of which I love, like Sleeping Gods. Scythe, in some ways, is a kind of an exploration game, but there are a lot of games where you're placing tiles and you have this top-down perspective. You're looking down at the world. But I really wanted to put players in the eyes of their characters, looking at the world and asking them to. I think that's a different feeling of perspective that video games give us quite a bit, but we see a lot less in exploration tabletop games. Time Stories being maybe one of the rare examples where you do look at things from that first-person perspective.
Actually, just while you brought that up, I wanted to share, because we didn't talk about the first-person view, how much more fun that is to actually play than just hear about, because this won't spoil anything, but me and my wife were playing, and I described a card to her, and I described it wrong, and we went off the wrong info. I was like, there's a wave in the background, and then I went there, and it's like, it was a mountain, and then it's like, oh, it was a mountain. So, like, you really do depend on the communication.
Yeah, the art isn't just there for set dressing. No, it's meant to give you information. Yeah.
And I was zeroed in on, like, if I see a cave, that cave will be there if I go west. But I wasn't zeroed in on, like, really explain the card right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Okay, I think next question. So, you mentioned you've been working on this for 8 years, and you've been giving us in the World Design Diaries for over a year now. Well into the playtesting process, and this was kind of different from how you announced and showed other games, and it wasn't total surprise. How would you say that went with this game overall, and sharing some stuff earlier?
Yeah, you're right that it is quite different. I think for those who have followed along with Stonemaier games over the last 5+ years, our typical method is after the product is actually fully produced and almost ready to sell, that's usually when I announce it and then when I share details about it, and then we start selling it. Usually a couple of weeks, maybe a month between the announcement, like the reveal, and the sell. Vantage, we've done this. I revealed it in April, I think, of 2024, and we're going to start selling it in July of 2025. So that's around, what, 15 months? It's a much bigger gap. And one of the main reasons I decided to do that is because I had so many stories to tell about how Vantage was created. That was a big part of it, and I've really enjoyed that process. Like usually when I write these design diaries, it is a major part of kind of my week when I write it. I usually write them weeks in advance, and I think about them for the weeks coming up to it. It's not something I like throw up the night before for the upcoming update. So that's been kind of nice to have that freedom to really dive into it, to get perspectives from the developers, Travis and Garrett, to give them that time to write up some different elements of their experience. And also just being able to watch people learn about the game in their own pace. There are people, someone might be learning about Vantage for the first time today, and they could go to our website and see an archive of all these different updates, and that's okay. Or there are people who've been following along for the whole time, and that's been exciting for me to see other people get excited about it and discover it. But it's also been helpful from a numbers perspective to decide how many copies we actually need to print, because we didn't go to print on Vantage until around, I think, maybe January of this year, maybe a little bit earlier than that. So for a good 8 months, I was able to see, are people as excited about this game as I am? Apparently they are, and so we need to make a lot of copies of it. So all three of those elements were helpful for the creation of the game. What have you all thought? I know since it's so different than the normal rollout, I don't think this fits for every game. I think it's actually pretty rare that we'll do this, but did you like it? Did it feel too drawn out? Would you have preferred it to be just a few months? What do you think?
I'll let Carol go first.
Really well. Yeah, I think it worked out really well for this one, just because so many of us who've been following Stonemaier for so long have known the hints of it. So Molly and I are both wearing champion t-shirts that have that compass on there that people were guessing forever, like, oh, that compass has to be wild. That has to be the open exploration game. And there was never the confirmation, but what everyone was thinking. So I think especially for this one, we got that excitement a year ago, and then we kept getting it then. So I do think you're right with it kind of being hinted at for so long and talked about for so long. It very much lent itself to this building it up over the year, especially with so much to talk about. I think, what was it, Molly, back in February, I think I did hey, here's a recap of all the design diaries. And when I did that recap, and it was, I think, February, I had 4 pages of notes just from looking at all of your design diaries. Yeah. And I think it was over a half-hour video. So to try to get people caught up. So a lot of information, which I think if you would have given it to everybody in a couple weeks, I would have been a little daunting.
Would have been overwhelming, yeah.
Yeah, I think Carol hit it on the head, and you as well. There's so much more info in this game, and you've been prepared for 8 years. There was so much to share. I thought it went great. I loved being able to tease things on the mail, tease things with my board game group. They're often the ones who are zeroed in on Stonemaier releases because they know that if I get an advanced copy to cover, that they'll get to play it a few days or a few weeks before it's released. And in this, they got to be excited about so much longer. But the way you normally do it is just so fun too, where it just comes out and the hype is all in the moment and it's all real. So I love that you mixed it up, and I love both ways. I think deciding based on game how best to release it is really the way to go, and this has been a treat. It even was fun having the metal coins and showing those off early.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my way of saying this is a real thing. I know some people have had those metal coins for a year and they've done nothing with them, or maybe they use them for a different game. But after talking about the game for so long, I wanted to show people, hey, this is actually going to be a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. If you have talked about it for 8 years, then the physical thing exists. People can know, oh, it really is close.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think I got these when we were at Geekway a year ago, and I think we used them when we played Witcher together.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because I had them there. And then I
Yeah.
put them in a bag, and now they're back in the Vantage box. So yeah, I
Nice.
got those. They're very satisfying and clinky. All right. So, okay. So we've been talking kind of about this length of the 8 years. And when I was thinking about that, I'm like, gosh, you've published a lot of games since then. And looking at them, I was looking, I'm like, you've kind of designed 5 or 6 games within this 8-year span. So Rolling Realms and Rolling Realms Redux, Expeditions in the expansion, Red Rising, Smitten, Tapestry and expansions have all come out since you started like even thinking about Vantage. So I guess with this kind of being unique, did you see the influence of these games and timing kind of overlap and impact each other, whether it was either how you maybe just solved a design hiccup or something more direct? So I was kind of wondering if having so many games come out within this span, how maybe they influenced each other or maybe your design process.
Yeah, I would say there's 2 things related to that time period. One is related to the games. One is related to something in the world that happened during that span. For the games, typically when I design games, I have 2 going on at any given time, and it gives me, if I reach a roadblock in one game, it gives me an outlet to switch over and switch my mind off that one game and switch over to another game for a little bit, and then I can come back fresh. I like to bounce back and forth. And Vantage in particular was, it's so big that whenever I would make a change that impacted everything, and that did happen several times, many times during the process, it was really daunting because it isn't like with some designs, and Molly, I know you've worked on some games. If you make a change, sometimes you can make it, you can sit down for a good prototype session, you can make the change, and you can just be ready again for a new playtest. For Vantage, it would sometimes take weeks for me to make a single change worldwide. And so it was really tough for me to feel like I was making progress sometimes. And so it was really nice to be able to actually see much faster progress on other games happening at the same time. Just psychologically, that was really helpful for me. The other thing is that COVID happened in the middle of the Vantage design process. And so it really informed my decision to make Vantage not a campaign game and to make it a game that could be played remotely with other people around the world, especially since the theme of Vantage is that you are being dropped on this planet far from the other players. So it is a game that I don't think it plays 100% as well remotely as it does in person, but it really does play pretty well remotely. We play tested it heavily remotely, and it captures that feeling of being far across the planet from someone else. And I think a lot of that mechanism of being played remotely and a theme of loneliness is a little bit in the game, like being lonely together, especially if you're playing with other people, because you're far across the planet from everyone else, but you can still hear them. So you're together, but also alone. That came, I think, a lot from the feelings that I had during COVID.
Oh, it totally makes sense. That's on Molly and mine's to-do list, is to try to play it virtually.
Yeah.
Let me know when you do, because I can share. I haven't shared it yet, but there is a spreadsheet that we created for it's like a Google sheet for communicating some things that are helpful for the other players to see when you're playing remotely. Yeah.
We're hoping to do it as a mill video, but we'll probably do a practice one
cool.
first, because that Carol and I initially bonded playing Rolling Realms together from different countries, so like that's always on our mind. Good remote play games, and this would be the perfect one. Very exciting aspect to it.
Yep.
Okay, so related to that, you kind of touched on this a bit, but I just wanted to ask, because it was such a long design process, how do you feel you've changed as a designer along this? How has it affected the game? And how has Stonemaier Games changed even? And I mean, we're in the kind of time where even a few months changes the world a lot, so it must... Anyway, I'll let you talk. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that 8 years has provided is a perspective, a much broader perspective on other games, because I played hundreds of games during that time, including many of the games that Carol you mentioned that are mentioned in the rule book. Uh, that I think, like I played and consumed so much content about open world exploration and discovery games. I was basically in any moment where I was not thinking about something else, I was thinking about Vantage and open world games and how I could, what I wanted to incorporate, what I didn't want to incorporate. So just that amount of time and the number of games that came out during that time, some of which even like Earth impacted Vantage's design. Earth isn't an exploration game or an open world game, but it is a tableau building game on the table where you're placing things on cards and picking them off of cards. That you can see direct influence on Vantage as a result of Earth. So that was a big thing. Yeah, that was I think one of the biggest things. Just being able to, like as a designer, having the time to play a lot of other games. There are other things too. I don't want to get too emotional here in the moment, but my cat died during the time, and my dad died.
You're good.
And so,
Yeah.
adding that to the design as well.
Yeah, of course it would.
Yeah. It's kind of the part of it. It's life and emotion. And I feel like that's kind of cool what you've brought into, and since it is an open world game and it is about, you're going to find things that are emotional in an open world game. So you're going to see that influence. I think people are going to, I love that first picture of when you're just going to the back of the book Advantages and you're starting. I mean, I'm sure that's a wonderful reminder for you and all of that. So yeah, it's everything that you've experienced is going to kind of live on, which will be really cool. So we'll get to the fun part here. I'm going to use my cheesy transition. All right. So as I was reading the rule book, this part stuck out to me and I loved it. And I wanted to talk to you about it. So for people who haven't read the rule book yet, as I believe you're going to be getting it very soon to look at, it says there is a universal rule of thematic fun. And I love that it is bolded. It's early in the rule book. So my question for you, Jamey, is at what point did the universal rule of thematic fun get put in the rule book? And you kind of remember what triggered you to really make a rule that was thematic fun?
This is often the approach. So this is a rule that I have in my head at all times when I'm learning or teaching or playing games. It comes up with my mom a lot. Like my mom will say, she'll sometimes call me about a rule in one of our games, and I'll say, Mom, if I ever can't pick up the phone or I can't text you back right away, my rule of thumb is do the thing that's the most fun or the most thematic, one of the two. And so it's been in my head, but I didn't actually think to put it in Vantage until I think the game is Final Girl. I think Final Girl has, which I haven't played Final Girl, but I think Final Girl has a rule very similar to this, where I think there are a lot of combinations of like maps and characters and bad guys in Final Girl. And I think that the designer at some point just said, there are probably going to be some edge cases that we have not covered in the rulebook due to all these combinations. And so here's a universal rule. I think theirs is very similar to that. Maybe, I don't know if they use fun. I think they have like a few different categories, like do the thing that is like the scariest or the most difficult or something else. You can choose it. But I was like, I think that's pretty cool that they actually wrote it down and codified it for players so they can look at the rulebook and say, okay, we can't find this in the rulebook, but this is in the rulebook as a universal rule. Have you two, in playing Vantage, have you had to use that rule yet?
100%.
You have, okay.
Well, I got a personal objective, and it wanted me to look for a certain type of card. And I was actually chatting with Garrett, developer Garrett, and I'm like, this really isn't like the type of card it wanted. I'm like, I have all these other cards that are clearly made from this. I just don't have that type of card, but it's clear, it's in my grid. And we both kind of like, and this is why there is the universal rule of thematic fun. I'm like, whatever, I've accomplished this. I'm supposed to have this type of card but I've clearly made this tool from this. So I'm like, nope, I did it. And then I go through the thing. I'm like, yes, I've done everything that has to do with this goal. I just didn't have the term. Like, no, this doesn't make sense. So yeah, I totally went with the fun thing. Like, I have this stuff. I had a game where I had like 4 or 5 animals in my grid. So I just called it my animal game. And I was like, oh, you know what? I've done this. Clearly, I'm well past we're in a world. I'm already going down another rabbit hole. So, you know what? I just did this. And it was fun. I was playing solo too. So I think that kind of comes into play a lot when you're playing solo, is that it just makes sense. And the idea is to have fun. So yeah, nope, I definitely use the rule.
So I don't think we've used a super big example of it, but I actually, when I read it in the rule book, it was like, it really stuck with me because I've just been teaching my wife how to be a DM in our Dungeons & Dragons campaign. And D&D also uses, they don't have the good wording, the universal rule of thematic fun, because there's so many edge cases in role-playing, and someone's created a world, people have created characters, doesn't always mesh together perfect. And in that, it's up to the dungeon master, really, to make everything fit thematically and fun. And so when I was teaching Vantage to my wife, the teach went, as you've set it up to do, faster than she was expecting. And I'm like, we're just starting. Like, it's happening. And, like, there's a little bit of stress. Like, oh, like, what do I do? And it's like, if we're not sure, what's the most thematic and fun? Like, it's a really, like, helpful way to ease into it. Like, I find it helpful in role-playing games. So I really like that it was in the rule book.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too. That aspect of, I think some players will struggle with that aspect at the beginning of the game, because really, the answer to the question of like, what do I do right now, when you first land on the planet, is whatever you want to do. But that is a tough question, I think, for gamers to answer, especially if you're used to playing Euro games where they're very like the game is telling you specifically to do this one thing. So some player, I don't know. I'm curious how that will emerge, how people will respond to that. I think some people might lean into the mission a little bit, but the mission doesn't, there are 21 different missions. You often have to figure out what they even mean, really, before you fully pursue them. So yeah, I'm curious about how people will respond to that type of freedom in a tabletop game.
I think it's definitely, especially when they do their first one, if they don't quite understand the mission, I think it's going to take that getting used to of like, wait, I just explore, and then I kind of have to go with my gut, and it'll eventually like, oh, that makes sense. Or if I'm supposed to do this, you kind of have to go a little bit with your intuitions. I've definitely run across that a couple times and then, kind of double checked, make sure I understood things with Garrett, just so I can answer people's questions later too. And it's been, I love the exploration part, but I can definitely see where some people are going to want a little bit more info. And I think, because on your mission cards, you have where they can go and interact with the mission card to get some of those hints. So I think people have access to the hints if they really want them to.
Yeah, and that came from playtesting. Like that, those weren't originally on the mission card, but a lot of playtesters said they wanted some guidance, or the option of having that guidance. So we put those actions on the mission cards.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So I guess my next question, while we're talking about the fun and thematic fun, do you have a Vantage story that you can share that was fun and memorable here in the interview without spoiling too much, I guess?
Yeah, I do. About a month ago, so I had my advanced copy of Vantage, and I filmed a lot of videos about Vantage, and I really wanted to just spend an afternoon playing Vantage for myself. Like I didn't want to. I took some photos, but I didn't want to record it. I just wanted to enjoy it because I really do love playing the game. And so I just sat down for a lovely, pleasant, probably as an hour-long solo game of Vantage. And I crashed on the planet. I immediately found a little kid on the planet who wanted to go on an adventure. And so I got permission from his parents to take the kid on a little adventure, and I had to get him home by dinner time. And so we just went on this little adventure around an archipelago. And we got sidetracked a little bit and it wasn't like it wasn't why I crashed on the planet. It wasn't my end goal, but it became like my purpose to like have fun with this kid, just walk around like one of my nieces or nephews, and then get him back home by dinner, or get them back home by dinner, and I did. There were little things along the way that I don't remember specifically, but I remember going on this little adventure and seeing a kraken and going fishing with this kid, and I got him home. I got them home by dinner. So it's one of the yeah. Yeah.
I've met this kid.
You met the kid? Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's funny you share that because the game me and Jamey are in the middle of right now, she is so locked in on the mission and she found a way to interact with it. And, like, it's so epic for her. And I'm just dallying around crafting stuff. And, like, both our stories, like, we're both like, I gotta get back into it. Like, I'm working on the mission. I'm like, we gotta keep playing. Like, I'm crafting. Like, it's just, whether it's relevant or not, like, it's been just as much sucking me in.
Yeah, there's so many fun rabbit holes. Listen, I had one where I had a bunch of animals. I'm like, I wonder if I can get a full grid of animals going here. That would be a fun goal. I bet I can get close. I did get close. I had some other tie-ins with them, but yeah, I think you can kind of make your own little missions as you go along.
That's also codified in the rules where a victory can be that you accomplish a thing that you set out to complete. Like if you set out to craft something really, really cool, that can be a victory in the game. Or if you fill your grid with animals because you decided that was important to you, that is a victory. And that is all. I think that's pretty different than a lot of games. And that's why I do have some like official ways to win. But that's also an official way to win, to say I want to do this thing and to accomplish that thing. And actually, after I delivered that kid home, I rather quickly died right after that, or was exhausted. But I was okay with that because I had gotten the kid home safely. Yeah.
Another thing I love about it too is because of the nature of the game. Like, if I spend a game crafting and have a great time, it is kind of like a video game where I leveled up in my crafting skill because the next time I play, I, as a person, know more about the crafting in the game. It's the only way to really know about it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think it was the second game I played, I finally learned, like, oh, I can do this with my character. Like, my first game, I was all focused on exploring the world, and I didn't even look at, like, actions on any of the cards. I just wanted to keep exploring. Then my second game, I'm like, oh, yeah, the cards, too. And I started messing around with that. So, yeah, I feel like there's just been so many different ways. I've played solo a couple times. I actually played it 5-player this past weekend.
Oh, wow.
That was very different.
Yeah.
We hit a lot of different parts of the world.
You did, yeah.
So, yeah, it's been cool.
Nice.
All right. So those were our kind of more get-to-know Vantage questions. So, Jamey, as people are kind of getting ready to listen to content creators in a couple days and getting to actually start to order it in a couple weeks, is there anything else you want to bring up about Vantage or any kind of last notes you want to end on?
I've been thinking about this because I expect there will be more conversations about Vantage, more questions over the next few weeks, which I'm excited to see those questions. And I would say two things. Two things come to mind. One is, and we touched upon this a little bit with the mission. The mission specifically, there are some actions on the mission cards. Vantage, a game of Vantage, especially if you're playing with 5 players or more players, can take a long time. And it can even, if you take very, very simple actions, it could take, the game wouldn't even necessarily end if you take very, very simple, if you just like walk around the world and take the easiest move actions. So it can be a longer game. It's definitely longer for a Stonemaier game, even though it is meant to be a single session game every time you play. But there is a way, and I wish I put this in the rulebook. It's hidden in the glossary instead of in the core rulebook. But you can make Vantage a shorter game by choosing some of those actions on the mission. So if you only have like an hour to play Vantage with a few players, I actually do recommend that you take some of those actions on the mission if you are focused on the mission and you want a shorter game. That's one thing. So that's more advice when people actually get their copy. The other thing I wanted to mention, I am forgetting right now as I talk about it. What was the other thing? It wasn't about the content creation that we're going to see. I'm blanking out. Maybe it'll come back to me in a second. Is there anything that you two, now that you two have played a little bit of Vantage, that you would recommend that people keep in mind as they are seeing other people talk about it, other people play through it?
Actually,
oh, sorry, you can go first, Carol.
You go first. No, you go first, Molly.
We always talk at the same time. Mine was, I wanted to keep the sentence for me, it's the Stormlight Archives in mind for people. Journey before destination. This game is all about the journey, and it's so fun if you just have that mindset. It's just really fun to play, and you don't know where it's gonna go or what it's gonna end or how it's gonna end. And like you said, it can go long if you just stroll around, which you might want to do, but just have fun with it. It's a really unique game that I think, in being so unique, has opened the board game space up a whole lot more. So Journey Before Destination is what I want to remind people.
I love that line. I had a shirt that I was wearing the other day with that on it. Oh, yeah, no, that's a good one, Molly. Yeah, I would say, actually, after my first playthrough, I actually made a video for prepping for your first game that I feel like has a lot of these kind of caveats of, this is what to expect. Like, it's not going to be like something you've played before, and that's okay. You might not know, and I think that's part of that gamer sense of, I don't know what to do. I have this mission. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. It's like, that's okay. That's the idea. Just go find something that looks cool. Pick a word that's on that location that you think sounds fun, and kind of don't be afraid to do something crazy or different. It's just, as Molly just perfectly put, it's that journey. So yeah, I think it's just, hey, just get over it. Just go and do something that sounds cool.
Like that.
Yeah.
And with like with picking the words, I think like the action words on the locations, I would say probably 90% of the time it's pretty intuitive when you see it. Like you might see the word climb, and the description of the location might be about a tree on that location. You're going to probably climb that tree. There's some words that are a little bit harder to tell what they're referring to, but those are good words to try, because once you try it, you'll know what that word is referring to, and you will probably see that word elsewhere in the world numerous times. Maybe one of the other players that you're playing with will see that word, and you can be like, oh, I know what that word means now. If you do this, you might get this. The other thing that I forgot that I meant to say before is one of the comments that I've seen come up a few times from people who have maybe watched the spoiler video or watched a little bit that I put out there. People have said, oh, Jamey, you should put this in the world, or you should add this, or you should do this. And the thing that I'd ask people is when you have those ideas, that's awesome. I would say there's a 99% chance that the thing that you are looking for in the game is already there somewhere. You just need to find it. Like, I put everything into this world. And even you two, having played a few times, knowing about the game, I'm sure there's still a ton of even categories of things that you have not seen or not found yet. And so I would encourage people, feel free to embrace those ideas and have fun thinking about them. But I understand that it's probably already there. You just have to try to find it. Yeah.
Oh, I definitely. So I made that prepping video after my first game. Immediately after midway through my second game, I'm like, oh gosh, I gotta add another little caveat in here because I know people are gonna have questions about this too. It's like my first game, my first action, I hit half of my mission. My second one, I had no idea what I was doing for half the game. So, yeah, I think you're just gonna keep. I feel like every time I play, it's like, oh, that's what that does. But the other thing that came to mind, I was gonna say was, I also love when you're looking at the words on the actions on the side, and all of a sudden you're looking at maybe this kind of big that most games would call a monster, and then you look at the options and they're not just fight. Wait, I can go in coax, persuade, do something else with this thing that must be 10 times my size. So I always find that having those other options is really kind of interesting and fun to play with.
It's interesting because it's easy to share how wide the game is. We can share how many cards there are and how many actions, and people can do the math. But because we're not trying to spoil, it's hard to share how deep it is, and it's just as deep as it is wide, and it really just takes playing to find that out. The stuff Carol shared with me, I had no clue was in the game, and I'm sure vice versa. And we're just 2 people playing less than 10 games total at this point.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's all we have. So, Jamey, thanks so much for coming on and talking about Vantage with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. We've been so excited for this one. We're pumped for the release. And for the discussion. This is going to have huge discussions online. It's going to be so fun.
It means a lot to me that you 2 are playing it and that you took the time to talk to me about it. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I think that's it from the mill. So, once again, thanks, Jamey. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Yep. Thanks. Bye, everybody.